Sir? Nagraj sir?
Yes, ma'am, I'm there.
Yes, sir. We can resume the session, sir.
Madam, my screen is shared, the Excel sheet?
Yes, sir. Yes.
Okay, okay. So we entered into the first submodule of FI, that is the accounts payable, or rather this is the second one because we already finished with the general ledger. But please do not think that we have finished everything as far as the general ledger concept is concerned. There are still some things more, okay, which I will be sharing at the appropriate moment. Okay. Now, what can you expect from the accounts payable is what we are going to see. The first and the foremost is the creation of your vendor master data. But now you should be aware that SAP HANA never talks about vendors or customers. It talks about something called as business partners, where you can create a business partner as your vendor or as your customer. But the usage of the word vendor or customer is no more used in HANA. Okay. Now, probably, okay. If there is an opportunity, let me tell you how. Now, as far as the AP module is concerned, the payments is the most important thing what needs to be understood. Now, here again, in typical ECC SAP, how would you view the vendor or the customer master? Okay, now basically I said, let me remove payments for the time being. Now vendor master data. Now, what should the master data contain? Now, when you're talking anything about vendors, only from the finance perspective, the master data requirement is different. Whenever you're talking of a vendor from the integration perspective, so which are the two modules which we are going to integrate? So the integration module is your source to pay, or in the ECC SAP, it was called as procure to pay, P2P. Now source to pay is a typical HANA term. Earlier it was purchase to pay cycle. ECC, it was the purchase to pay cycle or procure to pay cycle, whatever. Now, this totally is an integration with the FI and the material management or the purchasing module. So whenever you're talking about integration, you're talking about the integration between the finance and the material management module when you're talking about AP. And this cycle is your source to pay or procure to pay. Now, here, whether you need an integration or not. So what do I mean by this? Now, I gave you an example of a simple tea vendor coming in and supplying tea or coffee to your employees. He may not be a major vendor for you. But whereas, if you consider a vendor supplying raw materials, which is the heart of your business, he becomes a very, very critical vendor for you, right? So now, can you consider or can you give the same importance? Or normally, how is the treatment? When you talk about the treatment to these two different vendors, is there a difference or not? Definitely. So in one case, that is the person who's supplying the raw materials, you are treating him very different in your SAP system also. How? By creating a master data. Whereas when you're talking about small time vendors, where you purchase your stationery or maybe say your tea or coffee, whatever, small time vendors, you need not necessarily have to create a master data for them. So you are paying them cash on a transactional basis. Or maybe say you may do some bulk purchases every month. So you pay say some 5,000 rupees for the entire month to your stationery vendor or to your tea vendor or whatever. So you need not create a different or a separate master data for these kind of vendors. Same thing applies to your customers also. Yeah. Now let me stick to the discussion. So now how these vendors are recognized? How do you differentiate between a small time vendor or your big time vendors? Or even in your big time vendors, you can have import vendors, you can have local vendors. You may be importing, you may be having some vendors from where you are buying the raw materials, or you may be having vendors available locally. So how do you differentiate? You have something called as account groups, vendor account groups, very similar to your general ledger account groups. What did we do in our general ledger account groups? We classified the general ledger accounts into your balance sheet account or your profit and loss account, or based on the requirement of your implementing partner. Fixed assets, current assets, bank, materials, customers, vendors. So there is a similar methodology where you classify your vendors or your customers also. You could be importing some very costly raw materials, right? Now, this constitutes the concept of your account groups, or you can also have the account groups based on the volume of the business. Greater than 25 lakhs, greater than 10 lakhs, and less than 25 lakhs. So between 10 lakhs and 25 lakhs is another group. Less than 25 lakhs, less than 10 lakhs is another group. So based on whatever may be your, or you can simply have your north, east, south, west. Yeah. So you can classify your customers or vendors based on any of the business decision. Based on the geographical location, based on the volume of business, based on the nature of materials. So how do you classify them? Basically, you can classify them through account groups. This is as far as your major vendors are concerned. Now, as far as the small time vendors, you need not have a classification because you may not be doing huge business with them. Now, do you have to consider them from the MM perspective also? Because in these cases, in the big time vendors, you have various concepts from pouring in from your material management side also through the purchase department. But whereas for your small time vendors, do you have any information flowing or required from the purchase department? You don't. So you handle it only from the finance angle, only from the finance department, because you're paying them money. So it becomes very critical to understand whether you are handling vendors only at the finance level or both levels. What are both levels? FI and MM. And you also have the production planning module also. Production planning module. Clear? Are you getting a hang of this topic? How you need to handle vendors, how you need to handle, and what are the concepts in SAP? Now, if at all you are tackling, so at both the levels, you can have the vendor master at the general data level, general data, his name, the vendor's name, Measures ABC Limited, where is he located, his address, his telephone number, contact person, his fax number, his bank details. There is certain information specific to the finance department only. That is called as company code data. So then the general data is common to both modules, FI and MM or PP. When you're talking about the information to complete the master record or to complete the details of a master vendor, you require some specific information from the purchase module also, or from the MM module also. So basically you have a single vendor whose data is spread across these three views. So three different views of the vendor master data or your vendor master data, where this includes information flowing from both your finance and as well as from your purchase module, MM module. Am I clear, students? I'll just pause for a couple of minutes, waiting for you to ask questions. Just try to think about whatever is happening. And students, let me also tell you that I will be revisiting the topics and I will also be extending the concepts as and when the time arises. At the appropriate time, whenever I feel that you are in a position to understand things, I'll be pushing in more and more of information as regards any of the topics which have happened. If I have not answered any of your questions, or if I have not covered a specific topic, it is only on this purpose. I would have just postponed the topic. Okay, I'll explain the three views. Let the topic come up. Okay, then we will see how this is being handled. Let's not take up this question as of now. Okay, it's still premature. Okay, let's take one by one. And if there is a concept about petty cash, definitely I'll handle this topic. All right. I'm just exemplifying what is happening things practically in your business. See, these things are happening in the business with or without SAP. The petty cash concept has not come in after SAP. It was existing even before SAP. How SAP has done? Let's keep it in store for some time. And if there is a topic as related to the petty cash, definitely I'll do it, or else I am not going to touch upon this topic. Okay. Because what happens, it will lead to a lot of unwanted information, right? And the other people may find the subject a little difficult. Instead of appreciating the lovely SAP product, they will start feeling it as more and more complex. Well, let's not get into that. All right. So the three views. The three views of your customer or your vendor data comes up only when you have integration. Else you do not have these three views at all. Now, when would you want to have an integration? When you have a process, purchasing process. Now you should clearly be in a position to understand my business wants 20 to 25 books, some small pens or something, pencils, erasers. So I may buy spending 1,000 rupees or 2,000 rupees on a maybe say weekly basis or even whenever the requirement comes up from a relevant department. So do you think I should be dealing with the purchase department for this? Not such a big activity, right? I'm not dealing in, I'm not giving him a huge business, like say lakhs and lakhs of rupees, because my business is with major vendors. So now you should be in a position to understand between major vendors and non-major vendors. Major vendors are those who really affect your business and wherein there is a process. So you cannot simply keep purchasing raw materials, right? You cannot simply keep a stock of raw materials, do you? Because you're spending so much of money on the raw materials. So you will wait, you'll be having enough stock, the safety stock or the economic order quantity, whatever you would have studied in your CMA or in your BComs. All the concepts are very much there. All right. Now, only when the relevant production department puts up a request for the raw materials, it is only then that I purchase these raw materials. You agree with me? I do not carry on the purchase activity every day. The purchase activity is a major activity, correct? Because it is affecting my business. What am I into? I'm producing a product for which I require raw materials. You're able to understand the criticality or the difference between the major and the non-major vendors. So in this case, I will have a definite process. What could be the process? Now, for me to purchase a raw material, I should have identified a vendor in the market, because there could be n number of vendors in the market who can supply the same item. But which vendor supplies the quality raw material at a competent price and at the given time? If I want the material tomorrow, my production department wants to have the material tomorrow only. It cannot be in the next week, because Friday is a weekend. I'm not working. So this applies to the production department also. Absolutely no. Your production activity never stops, because that is the heart of your business. So if at all you need to procure, or if at all your purchase department or your production department wants to have the material by tomorrow, you should very well get the material from the vendor tomorrow itself. Clear? So what is the process? If I'm purchasing raw materials worth around 75 lakhs or to a few crores, do you think I'll be spending this money without any care or concern? I need to have a process to spend this money. I need to have robust systems where I have a clear control over this expenditure. So what happens? I formalize this contract with my vendor by means of a purchase order. It becomes a legal understanding. So the vendor or the vendor promises my organization that he is going to supply quality raw materials at this price and at the desired time. There will also be an approval from the finance person. Why? Because he will be responsible for releasing the payment. Finally, you sign a purchase order for 75 lakhs worth of raw materials. Once when the vendor supplies the relevant quantity, don't you have to pay the amount to the vendor? So who is a good judge of what funds are available in the treasury for me to release the payment? So the finance department should be aware of such a huge money going out. So at the stage of the purchase order itself, whenever huge contracts, whenever there is an involvement of huge money, all right, you need to very well involve the finance person. This is where your integration will start. Clear? So now I hope you are clear about how things are happening in the real business world. Forget SAP. I'm not asking you to think about from the SAP perspective at all. So in that case, for a major vendor, for a major supplier, you have three views of the data. One is the generic information as regards to vendor. One is finance specific. One is your purchase department or your plant or your planning or your production department information, which has to get into the master data. Clear? Did I answer your question as regards why you require three views or what are the three views of a vendor? And when we talk about customers, you will see the same three views, but from the sales angle. Here you are viewing the vendor master data from the purchase angle, from the finance and the purchase angle. There you will see the customer data from the finance and the sales angle. Are you getting a brief idea? Clear? So this is about the introduction to your accounts payable. So you can have transactions at the integration level or just at the pure finance level only. What do I mean by this? Purchase level means it is an integration. I'm not going to talk about the integration. Integration will come later. Whenever I'm talking about pure finance transaction with a vendor, I'm paying 2,000 rupees every week to a small stationery purchase or to a tea vendor. So I raise a voucher on every Friday. Friday evening, I release a payment of 2,000 rupees and I enter that voucher in my SAP system. It's a simple journal voucher. Stationery expenses or say general expenses account debit to cash. Do I involve purchase department for this? Absolutely no. So you are viewing the transactions purely at a finance level. So here there is no requirement for finance, and hence we do not even bother to create a master data as far as such kind of transactions are involved. Now, are you clear about the concepts? Now, let us go back to the. So you're aware of now, probably vendor master is a little clearer now. I'm not expecting you to be perfectly clear. No. Okay. Let's read through. Accounts payable is the amount owed by an entity, owed by my organization to the vendors or the suppliers for the goods and services received. Yeah, you guys are first class professionals, so you can spend time in reading this. Okay, you don't require me to interfere into this. Okay. Key terms: submodule involves money that is owed by a business entity to its vendors or creditors. Okay. Accounts payable, what is the responsibility? The sole responsibility is to release the timely payment to the vendors, especially to the critical vendors within the respective time frame. Clear? Or else he will not supply the items. Yes, we had a very serious issue and we had to resolve this issue, right? Now comes the explanation for a business partner. I said, now there is no more usage of the terms customers or vendors. They are grouped in as a business partner. This is typical HANA. Okay. The master data of vendors are administered by the business partner, not only for vendors, it is for the customers also. Clear? See, I was talking to you about the general data. If you remember my Excel sheet, do you see the general data out here? Now let's get back to the topic. General data includes data such as vendor's address, his contact person, his email, his telephone number, his address, right? So you see the company code data also. The financial accounting data is maintained at the company code level. So the finance person is responsible for managing the company code level information of a specific vendor or a customer. Do you see a very, very interesting line? Company code data includes the data which has a link to the GL accounting. Do you remember something which I referred to maybe say yesterday or the day before? How is this part of the data talking to the general ledger accounting? Finally, all the transactions should hit the finance and should get accounted. How is this happening? See, that is why SAP, I read it backwards and forwards. Now, do you understand the concept of reconciliation account? It is through this concept of reconciliation account that there is an interaction at the company code level between the finance and the AP submodule, accounts payable. It is through the reconciliation general ledger account that your accounts payable submodule is talking or communicating with the finance. Now I hope you're in a position to place things. Now I think probably you would have got a clearer idea as to what is a reconciliation account. If you have understood this line, it is through the reconciliation account that the GL part of the finance or the general ledger part of the finance module is talking to the accounts payable submodule of finance. It is within the finance module. You saw this, right? General ledger, accounts receivables, accounts payables. So in between or between themselves, it is through the reconciliation account that they are communicating. The GL is talking to AP through the reconciliation account. The GL is talking to AR through the reconciliation account. The GL is talking to assets through the reconciliation account. The concept of reconciliation account is not applied in SAP to any other concept. Students, how are you feeling the subject now? Feeling okay? Or you have some things which are conceptually not understood? Please feel free to ask me. I'm in no rush. I'm in no hurry. Because you as finance people, you should be very, very clear about these concepts. See, that is why I just exposed you to the terms. Now I'm relating those terms. See, I just told you about the reconciliation account. Now, where and how it is being used and giving you a picture. I'm just taking you to the place or taking you to the concept where this is going to be used. How it is going to be used in the SAP system. Please hold on. Here. So please read the slides. All right. So BP role is nothing but whenever you're creating a business partner, what is his role? Is he a vendor? Is he a customer? See, FI vendor role. What did I say? FI vendor? Small time vendors, right? So please read. OK. So let me click on this. So who is a business partner? Who is a customer or a vendor? A person who has business interest. Clear? Read them through. OK. As I said, you do not have to understand letter by letter. OK. I'm just taking you to the concepts. So the business partner can be created as a person, as an individual, or as an organization also. Yeah. Person represents a natural person. An organization represents uses as a company, example, a legal person. So you're dealing with a vendor, measures, say my company, measures ABC Limited. I'm dealing with measures ABC Limited as a vendor. So he becomes a legal entity. Measures ABC Limited is also a legal person. Yeah. Group. Just an extension of this. Nothing beyond. OK. Don't try to break your head too much on this. So who basically is a business partner, suppliers or customers, vendors or customers. So just read them through whenever you find time. All right. So I wouldn't want to spend much time out here. Did you see this? General data, company code data, or your accounting data, and the purchasing data. So you can click on everything. General data is defined in the business partner general rule and valid for a single client. Includes data such as vendor's address, bank, contact people, email, contact number, right? Accounting What is accounting information? What company code data? Number of the reconciliation account. The first and the foremost activity of a finance consultant, whenever he talks about the vendor, is the linking of the vendor to your finance. Clear? And how does it happen? Through the reconciliation. That is exactly what I said. So these are all your Incoterms, your partner roles. They are typically the language of the material management module. You are not, you as a finance person, you are not the one who's going to define this. Just like we started our activities, we in the sense, the finance people, we start our activities with the company code. The purchase activity starts with the relevant experts, the module people, defining something called as a purchase organization. And within the purchase organization, they have concepts, they have these concepts, Incoterms, all these things. Okay, you don't have to bother about it because it is good to know, but not mandatory to know. So what is the info record? All right, all the responsibilities of all the purchasing information. This data flows into the SAP system through the material management module. Clear? Don't have to worry too much on this. Read it through in your free time. Any other concept which I need to let you know? So he's talking about the transactions in AP. Let us not bother too much on this. Okay, I'll come back to this concept. I will make note of this slide because this concept is typical to your, it is there in ECC also. What is the slide number? Slide number 354. A very, very interesting topic, document splitting. I have made note in my notepad. So now if I want to explain, you will not be in a position to understand. So I have reserved this particular slide to a later time. One of the most critical features in your AP module, as far as the finance is concerned, it is not related, it is not the responsibility of the material management module, but this payment is very, very critical and unique to the finance consultant only. You see something called as a APP, automatic payment program. This is referred to as the program which is responsible for releasing the payments to your vendors. I'll explain the process. Clear? Just a brief explanation into it. Clear? After we come back from lunch. Clear? So 355th page. In the meantime, let me take stock of what exactly this is. Okay, let me make note of it. In the critical thing is APP. One of the most very, very critical part of your finance. Okay, so let us look at it after lunch. All right, so we'll break for lunch. Janvi ma'am.
Yes, sir. Sure, sir. So students, we'll be breaking for lunch now, and then we'll resume at 2 p.m. for the next session, afternoon session. Thank you, Nagraj sir.
Thank you, ma'am. Thank you.
Thank you all. Please be back at 2 p.m. for the next session. Thank you.